All right, let's get nuts. Welcome back to Mild Mannered Supermen. We are here tonight with a pretty fun episode. Jake, what does it mean to you when I say Heracleum Montagaziyama? Maybe I should try that again.
What it means that you should probably brush up on your Latin.
I should probably not have six whiskeys in me.
So let's see, Heracleum. I think that would imply a large something, right?
Okay. All right.
Hmm.
Hmm,
That would be
we're getting Latin here.
Giant Hogweed.
That's right. That's right. The giant hogweed. All right. Welcome back to Mild Mannered Supermen. This is Jarrett and Jake, and we are excited to bring you a fun episode just in time for Halloween. We'll get into the return of the giant hogweed from Nursery Cryme. That's right. Sticking with the Nursery Cryme theme. Last week, Fountain of Salamasis. We've also done the musical box from Nursery Cryme. Check out our other episodes too. We went back to Trespass. We did Stagnation and The Knife. We're having a lot of fun just doing this weekly, kind of bringing you a new song every week. And tonight is the return of the giant hogweed. Jake, what do you think about this?
Yeah, this is it is a fun song. I think it fits with just like you said, the kind of the nursery rhyme um kind of nature of the album, right? It's a little bit whimsical, little fanciful. But this one, I think like a lot of people, everyone kind of has their own kind of fun interpretation of the allegory of this song, right? Like they're singing about, of course, giant hogweed, and it's an invasive plant across most of the world now. As a matter of fact, I just read the other day, it's been found here in Virginia, where I live, as recently as 2018. So there you go. Giant hogweed is right on my doorstep.
Wow.
Run in fear.
Yeah.
Uh,
Strike by night.
Strike by night to disarm it, as its weapon requires the sun. Yeah, my personal take on this is, and again, we're having a little fun here, but we're talking about a band from Great Britain. They're talking about a weed that was transplanted from Russia, So to me, kind of the
Right.
height of the Cold War, this is really about Russian invasion and the spread of communism. And the kind of the satirical aspect of it is how bad are the teeth of this thing, really, right?
Right.
I mean, yeah, sure, it gives you a really nasty rash. It can leave you with some, kind of permanent scarring. But it's a plant.
I, dude, I
Eh,
love that take on it. I mean, I have been studying up on this song and the lyrics, and I've just been a fan of this probably since the first time I heard it. And I see all these things online about people talking about what it really means, like what's the meaning behind the meaning. And I think your assessment of that is spot on. But at the end of the day, this song sort of started as a joke for the guys. Like there was a few cases of, let me see if I get this right, phytophotodermatitis in England from people who had suffered from the venom of a giant hogweed. I think two or three people made the news one summer, and I think Gabriel thought that was funny. And so Gabriel, Collins, Banks, and Rutherford had this pretty much well written. Um, and then Hackett joins the band and adds the whole intro to it just to make it a absolute rocking like intro. And I think it just took on a life of its own. And what I love about this one is just watching the old live videos of them playing it, and they just all looked so happy playing this song. Like it's just such a fun one, and I think they are probably just thinking like, "Do you believe we wrote this song and like now we're playing it and people actually are responding to it?" So I can't
Made
wait to
it
get
onto
into
an
it.
album, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
yeah. And I think you make an important point there, because the regardless of how you look into this, the fact remains that this is a toxic plant that was purposefully brought into the country. and was distributed, largely around the world for the same reason that people thought it was pretty. It looked nice. It would make a nice, garden plant, and it was also planted as forage for cattle. And so this is a great, kind of the irony here is it's the dog biting the hand that feeds it, right? It's kind of like you put it in your gardens and help it spread, and then discover that it's got a kind of a nasty side to it. So I could see why Peter Gabriel would find humor in that, right? It's kind of
Totally.
well, there goes your English garden, right? There goes your kind of
Totally.
nice
Totally.
fanciness. You've uh, you've pooped on it in essence.
And they drew it into the album art, the Nursery Cryme. The back cover has a young girl standing there, just kind of like looking up in awe of this giant hogweed. And then the song itself just moves through so many theatrical elements, where there's just very standard narration of the story. Then there's a perspective from the actual hogweeds themselves towards the end of the song, where they are performing the dance of the giant hogweed. And the just the absolute classic kind of Genesis prog rock nature of this is just fully alive in this song. So I love it.
Yeah, it's all there. Well, yeah, and so let's talk just really quickly about the a little more about the structure of this song because I think it's uh, probably one of the just again one of the ones that you can maybe put a bit more of a structure on. There's
Yes.
almost a refrain in this song, right? I mean, there is, but it almost kind of serves as a chorus of sorts, which is about as close as we're going to get on Nursery Cryme to to a song that has almost a traditional song structure. There's an intro, there's several of these refrains, and then the instrumental kind of story break there, and then a pretty epic outro. The other thing that's going on is there's a lot of triplets in this song. And I was talking to my wife, Joanne, who's an early music educator. She teaches little children, and pointed out that lots and lots of our traditional nursery rhymes, and even kind of beyond that, folk songs, English folk songs in particular, utilize the 3/4 or the 6/8 time signature. And this song by kind of, and you hear it right at the beginning, right, with the tapping um, uh, between Tony Banks and Steve Hackett. Steve is playing again the tapping technique that we talked about last week.
Right.
He's using it again here very effectively, and I do want to kind of talk a little bit about how he and Banks almost trade roles there. But more importantly, they're playing a triplet pattern, which gives this song almost a marching, galloping feel right from the start, right? And so you get that kind of the martial nature of this. But it also is channeling that English folk tradition that uses that 3/4 time or 6/8 time to great effect for movement, right? I mean, you see this in English sea shanties and lots of your older folk songs that were intended for kind of the folk dance tradition. So, I think this is again some clever boys kind of utilizing what they know about English traditional music to paint a picture of kind of the martial, aspect of this hogweed battle that they have coming up, and they do that to pretty great effect. Now, Banks and Hackett, what I kind of wanted to mention here is Banks is actually at the beginning. He's playing a Hohner pianette yet again. So he uses 3 or 4 instruments on this album to pretty great effect. He has the pianette, he has an acoustic piano, he has the mellotron, right? And he has the Hammond organ. And we're going to hear, I believe, all 3 of those on this album. You hear just little aspects of the mellotron. The Hammond is rather prominent, I think, throughout the album. But you're going to hear it again on this song. But the little pianette line, what he's actually doing is running that through a fuzz box, which is just a fuzz, like an effects processor that's intended to give guitars a real fuzzy sound. If you think of Jimi Hendrix's work in the like 67, 68 time frame where he's getting real kind of heavy with the sound, that's all fuzz, right? David Gilmour uses a fuzz on Comfortably Numb, and it's actually a big muff fuzz pedal, which is um,
I don't think
coveted.
you're allowed to say that on this podcast.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. Um, and so it's almost like Hackett and Tony Banks are trying to trade places here, right? Hackett is playing a very percussive tapping line, and Banks has got the pianette run through a fuzz pedal to give it more of a guitar sound. And I think just layering those two on top of each other was a really clever um, studio trick that's used to great effect at the beginning of this song to really set the scene. There you go. So, any thoughts on that, Jarrett?
Yeah, I am fascinated by your analysis and your way of breaking all of this down. What does playing triplets in harmony really mean, though? Like, I don't fully understand the
Oh
whole
yeah, good.
concept of triplets.
Great question. Yeah, so you have your regular meter, right? So this song is mostly in a simple meter like 4/4, which is
Hmm.
there's four beats in a measure, and our quarter note gets a beat. So it's just if we were to tick off four quarter notes, it would sound like dong dong dong, something like that, right? You can divide those in half, and you wind up with eighth notes. So you have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. You divide that further, you get 16th notes, 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a triplet is a compound tool that you use, meaning it's three notes instead of two. And they take the place of one of these standard note values. So if we had like quarter note triplets, that would sound it would be three notes filling the space of the one quarter note. So instead of having 1, 2, 3, 4, you'd have triplet, 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 triplet. You have that ba 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 feel, right? Right?
Okay.
And it gives you that three sound in what's normally a 2 meter, right? So you have two beats or four beats in a measure. Everything's divisible by two, versus compound meter where things are divisible by threes. Um, so what it really does, though, is it gives you a feeling of a movement of kind of almost a gallop, triplet, 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 right? That feels like the horse gallop of our imaginations. So it's used to great effect by like Gustav Holst in the Planets in his Planet Suite. He has a piece called Mars, which is the bringer of war, right? And Mars is pretty much that entire work is triplets. It's dun 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 dun, right? And it sets a very martial feel, and you're gonna get that I think a lot from Genesis on this song. And it's really that play on we're singing about a battle, a war, right, between humans on one side and giant hogweed on the other.
Which I get the take from this song that the Hogweeds end up winning.
uh, we're
I
definitely left with their perspective, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
All
the,
right, so let's get into it. From time to time, though, I want to kind of surprise you a little bit. Before we do the return of the giant hogweed, I'm going to take a 1 minute and 45 second interlude to share another Genesis song, one that is, I think, quite meaningful to the entire catalog of all things Genesis. This is the song on the Nursery Cryme album right before Return of the Giant Hogweed. So it's going to flow right into Hogweed after we play this song for a minute and a half. This is For Absent Friends. And the reason I'm playing this is because, and the reason I think it's so significant is this was written, really co-written by Phil Collins and Steve Hackett, the new guys in the band. And Hackett kind of famously, sheepishly, took it to the other guys and said, "We have this song," and thought that they were going to get just flat out rejected. And to their surprise, they did not get rejected. They were kind of applauded for contributing so early on to the songwriting. And we know that that didn't always play out great for Hackett, down the line. But this little ditty also features Phil Collins on lead vocals for the first time with Genesis, which we know, growing up in the 80s, like he was the guy in Genesis.
Yeah, he's
And
the lead singer of Genesis.
yeah, and so when I remember first listening to this album and just being like, gosh, because a lot of the harmonies with Gabriel and Collins, they sound a lot alike. And then I'm listening to the song and I'm just like, that's Phil Collins. Like, and I did a little bit of looking deeper into it, and sure enough, this is his first lead vocal singing credit in Genesis. So we're gonna get into For Absent Friends.
Sunday at 6 when they close both the gates, a widow pair still sitting there. Wonder if they're late for church, and it's
There's those dual 12-string guitars again.
Passing by the padlock swings, the roundabout still turning. Ahead they see a small girl on her way home with a brand.
Just outstanding, isn't it?
Yeah, and lots of that extensive use of 12-string guitar. One of the
Yeah, and that's Hackett and Rutherford.
Yeah, I always loved two together. It's a pretty little ditty. This reminds me a lot of, songs like I Remember Clifford that are, they're sad, but they're also like, they're happy. It's kind of hard to say. They're pretty, and they
very British. All right, here we go with Hogweed. So I just wanted to get that in there. Otherwise, I don't think we do an entire episode about that.
Now that fuzz is the pianette. And I think just we gotta do this right from the start, right? Phil Collins drumming on this song is incredible. He was definitely a solid add to the band.
Yeah, 100%. The storytelling here is just incredible.
Right, you got these martial themes, that kind of victory cry right there. Here it goes.
I love the characters in the song. Like, this is kind of the propagandist, right? Like, explaining what's happening and why we all need to take up arms to fight against these. And then there'll be a little bit more of just a, quaint storytelling narrative coming up here.
This is our Bernard of Clairvaux, calling for the Crusades.
Right.
Do you find it interesting? Giant Hogweed actually isn't Russian. It does come from the Caucasus, which at the time in 1970 was part of the Soviet Union. But it is not native to Russia. So that call out to the Russian hills is what makes it Soviet in my mind, right?
I love just that idea that the hogweed has memory. and is gonna seek revenge on everyone.
Yeah, the Victorian naturalist captures it, right? Captures it, and he brings it to England.
Right. And puts it in the royal garden. Just the fact that the music signals that all hell breaks loose.
Right.
I mean, you like the garden. I like the garden. You know how hard it is to get invasive weeds out of your garden. You feel like it's a lifelong battle. And then Genesis writes a song about it.
Yeah, we're strategizing against the weed, right? We're disarming it by attacking it at night. Giant Hogweed has an answer. It's gonna get you with its hairs.
just how intelligent they are to weave, photosynthesis into the lyrics.
Yeah, this song feels like a school bet, right?
Yeah.
Bet you can't write a song about.
They have no chill. They're coming for everyone.
They're coming for everyone. Whole race.
I play this when I'm driving the kids to school, and my youngest son is like, "Not again, not the Hogweed song."
Now this part right here, I've gone back and forth, but I'm pretty sure this is, again, I think it's the Honer. I think this is Banks, not Hackett, because we're going to get a solo from Hackett here. And this is where you hear the mellotron, you hear some little streaks, strings.
I think this is the start of the dance of the giant hogweed. I don't know the exact moment that portion of the song starts, but they were very purposeful to call the dance of the giant hogweed kind of the second part of the song.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think the chordal, just the tonal progression here, would indicate kind of something's up. And here we have just some great guitar work from Steve Hackett.
All right, my favorite bit here is just when we actually get to hear from the giant hogweeds themselves. Gabriel plays the role of the leader of the giant hogweeds. You get to hear their clear vision, their clear mission, and then the battle cry in their Latin name. You can just picture them all singing next to the leader.
That's right. I always thought that was the response from the hogweed army.
Yeah, exactly. There's the Latin name, Heracleum Montagazianum.
And you can tell
from the music that, yeah, they mean business.
Riding on those cymbals.
Yeah, and this song has been criticized, right, for being maybe a little over the top. I mean, it's a song about Giant Hogweed, right? How could it ever go over the top?
Exactly.
Yeah, these are people who clearly don't understand.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's the whole idea, is to be over the top here. I just love it. I love everything about it.
It's great. It's such a theatrical song, and it really leaves you with the feeling that something just happened, right? And that right there is, I mean, it's great art. It makes you feel something.
Yeah, you start the song over again and you're like, wait, what did I just listen to? Let me try and follow along this time. And like it builds up to that, like, Hogweed's army wiping out humanity. I think it's just fantastic. It's so great.
Yeah, and you hear something kind of new every time you listen to that song, at least for a good while. There's a lot going on, and you got to give props to the audio engineers once again on this album, because this is not, par for the course for 1971 recordings.
Right.
This is very much over the top, and these guys are, for lack of a better term, they're making it up as they go along, and figuring out quite well. Here we're listening back 50 years after the fact, and it holds up.
Yeah, not only does it hold up as a single, but just as its contribution to Nursery Cryme as a whole. I think, again, I'm still just really getting fully immersed in this, this entire Genesis world. And I mean, obviously, I've just listened to Nursery Cryme so many times with a lot of appreciation. But as you and I are kind of going through this, it's forcing me to think about these things a little bit more deeply, and just how well structured Nursery Cryme as an album is, with these songs that tell such great kind of British stories. We covered the musical box in depth. For Absent Friends is, I mean, it's really a song about relationships and loss, and then you get into Hogweed and all the powerhouse that is. Songs like Seven Stones and Harold the Barrel and Harlequin that we haven't covered yet. But then Fountain of Salamassa's kind of taken that page from Greek mythology. Like, every one of these songs just really, top to bottom, tells a story. And for these young men to be in their early 20s, putting this kind of music together, the risk that they took to kind of tell these stories in this way, the patience that they had because they knew they were on the right path with this music that they were making. It's just really, the reason we're sitting here talking about them all these years later.
Yeah, that's a great point. And as you just kind of ran through the track listing for this album, and I'm kind of physically looking at it right now, and it just reminds me of something that's been a constant through music history, really up to the modern era. And there are folks who are not going to understand this, but this is another example of an artistic work that's governed by the medium on which it's presented, right? In 1971, this was an album that came out on actual vinyl, right? An LP, and they were limited by the length on one side of the LP and on the other. And you can see the first half of the album is 20 minutes long. The second half on the B side is 19 minutes long, right? So that tells you they were working within 21 minutes, something like that was kind of their cap. I say throughout music history because you actually see this starting with concert works from the Baroque era. They're shorter in nature because the lamps that lit the concert hall didn't burn as long, quite frankly. And so you had to have intermissions where the chandeliers could be lowered and refueled and put back up, right? When they were candle lit, they burned for 20 or 30 minutes, and that's how long you got.
Oh,
So
wow.
the orchestra would have to leave the stage, and they'd lower you'd have an intermission, and the hall would go dark, and you'd relight the candles. It got better over time, right? We moved into oil lighting and then gas lighting and onto electric lighting. Now we're in a world where you can create an album that's 24 hours long. It doesn't matter,
Sure.
right? You can
Sure.
whatever you can get away with. But that's part of what these guys are working with in terms of telling this story and to do it so effectively, right? That you have the musical box for Absent Friends and then the return of the Giant Hogweed. And that's side A, right? That tells you it tells you an entire song, an entire tale. So, for what it's worth, that's something.
And I think, again, I don't know everything about pressing records, but you can stretch it out and make it longer, but you lose a ton of depth in the music if you do that.
Fidelity. Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
if it's shorter, the needle can dig in deeper. Your grooves can be deeper because you only have so much vinyl to work with. Is my understanding of it. And so, especially as we get into, hopefully in the next few weeks, we get into like Supper's Ready, like one song that takes up the entire side of an album. There's risk with that if it goes on too long, you just lose some of that, I guess, fidelity, if you will, across the board. So that's really interesting on how it's been um, a construct of music really since the beginning of time. I remember growing up and just having all these CDs that I loved, and they all had and they were all from like the 70s, and they all had 8 tracks on them. And I was like, what is this? Like, why does every Boston album only have 8 songs on it? And it's like, oh, well, these were recorded for 8 tracks, and that's just the medium that it was coming out in. So, yeah, that's really interesting, and agreed. It's something that will kind of carry us through as we talk about more and more Genesis songs and the longer epics as they move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all fun stuff.
What any thoughts? I kind of surprised you with For Absent Friends. Any thoughts on that one? I mean, it's just such a pretty little quick ditty, but to me, it tells such a important. It's such an important piece of kind of the Genesis story.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's relevant to what we just talked about, right? That it's sandwiched between two significantly longer tracks, and it fills several purposes. One is a very technical purpose, right? It takes up a minute and 40 some odd seconds of that LP side, but it's a transitional piece, right? It moves us, at least from an overall narrative. It moves us from this the music box world, right? That we've just established this tale. It moves us into kind of a preparatory mindset for what's to come with Hogweed, right? And I think this is a sentiment that we're not totally familiar with in 2025. Was just how prevalent. There you are.
I mean,
Was just how prevalent in the post-World War II years memorials were, right? And the UK is all about it. I mean, you had guys like Roger Waters who were dedicating albums to this in the late 70s.
Right.
And so this is, I think, a pretty typical English construct. It's a memorial song. It's something that I think their English audience would be very familiar with. And then moving that into a martial kind of setting of Hogweed, that's, I mean, that's just custom made right there. So, yeah, I think you're right. It serves an important role. But it's also, I think it's cultural. I think it's maybe a little bit deeper for these gents than just kind of the musical aspect of how it moves the album. But to, again, to think that these guys are so young and have such a kind of a deep understanding of culture and what these things mean is pretty impressive.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. I mean, clearly very well educated. And again, I just love that interplay of Hackett and Collins, the new kids coming in, writing this song, being nervous to take it to the rest of the mates and having them accept it and having them give a thumbs up to Collins contributing kind of lead vocals for the first time. Makes you wonder why it was so hard to find a vocalist after Gabriel left, because he was there all along, really pounding it out. The and the duo of those two writing songs is limited in the Genesis archives, right? There's Blood on the Rooftops, which is another one of my absolute favorites. But for Absent Friends, just knowing that while all five of them get writing credits, the two new kids were the ones that really put it together, is something pretty unique and fun. And then obviously just Hogweed is tons of fun. I love talking to you about that a few nights here before Halloween. Just there's something about it that feels a little bit spooky, creepy, whatnot. And then just great storytelling and just an absolute kick-ass song across the board. So
are you gonna go as a giant hogweed when you
I don't
go
I don't
trick-or-treating this year, Jared?
I might. That's actually not a bad idea. But I was thinking about being a 6'7" because all the kids are, So I was gonna like have a box of tissues and a jersey with the number 7 on it. So I would be a 6'7".
6'7".
Yeah,
I
that's what I'm
gotcha.
thinking about.
That's clever. Clever.
Anyway, we are Mild Mannered Supermen. Check us out here on wherever you get your podcast, and we're on YouTube. We are also on TikTok. Check us out there. Lots of fun videos, just kind of archiving the entire history of Genesis. I'm all the way up to the second Mike and the Mechanics album now, so it's kind of fun to follow along there. We are getting some comments and some love and some questions, and we appreciate that. If you have some ideas on what we should do next, please let us know. But for now, we are going to sign off and let you get about your day. I am Jarrett.
I am Jake.
And we are Mild Mannered Supermen, I think.
Yes, we are.
Have a good one. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Mild Mannered Supermen, Mild Mannered Supermen, Mild Mannered Supermen.